The crane was already there before anyone spoke. Tall, still, waiting. 14,300 kilograms lay beneath it, unmoving, silent, heavy in a way that changes the air around it. This lift was never about speed. It was about precision, because when weight reaches this level, movement itself becomes dangerous. The cable tightened slowly, not because it needed to, but because rushing gives gravity an advantage. Steel stretched, not visibly, but enough. 14,300 kilograms began to separate from the ground. The moment weight leaves the earth, everything changes. What was stable becomes suspended. What was supported becomes trusted. And trust is fragile. The crane arm adjusted by a fraction of a degree. Barely noticeable. Enough to matter. At this scale, balance is not a concept. It is a condition. The load hung in the air, perfectly still for a moment. Too still. Silence like this feels unnatural, as if the world itself is holding its breath. Every component was now involved. Cables, pulleys, bolts, steel that had already carried thousands of lifts before this one. But weight does not care about history. 14,300 kilograms pulled downward relentlessly. Gravity made no exceptions. The crane began to rotate, slowly, deliberately. Each degree of rotation shifted force through the system, redistributing stress in ways no one could see. This is where lifts fail. Not at the beginning, not at the end, but in motion. The load swayed slightly, not enough to alarm, enough to remind. A subtle oscillation traveled through the cable, growing quieter but never disappearing. Sway is the enemy of control. The operator adjusted, not reacting, anticipating, because reacting is always late. The load rose higher. The ground below felt farther away now. Not in distance, but in consequence. At this height, failure would not be reparable. It would be final. 14,300 kilograms now existed in a state that should never be comfortable. Suspended, dependent, unforgiving. The wind shifted, not strong, just present. Enough to matter. Air pressure pressed against the surface of the load, creating forces small on paper, deadly in reality. The crane arm flexed under tension, not bending, working. There is a difference, but the difference is thin. This is the moment where margins disappear, because every system has one truth. It only fails once. The rotation continued. Halfway through the lift, the cable alignment changed. A minor adjustment. But minor does not mean harmless. Stress concentrated near the hook. The most unforgiving point in the entire system. 14,300 kilograms hung from a single connection. 1. The sound changed. Not a snap. Not a crack. A low metallic groan, deep inside the structure. The kind of sound that cannot be ignored. Everything slowed. Time does this in dangerous moments. It stretches. The operator eased the controls further, reducing movement, reducing risk. But reducing movement also increases exposure. Suspended weight has no patience. The load swayed again, slightly more this time, not because something went wrong, but because nothing ever stays perfectly still. The crane corrected. Barely. Enough. The final position came into view. Solid ground. Stability. Release. But reaching it required one last movement. One final adjustment. 14,300 kilograms weighted. This is where confidence is tested. Not in strength, but in restraint. The crane arm moved a final degree. The cable tightened, then relaxed. The load descended. Slow, controlled, unforgiving. Every second mattered now. Closer to the ground, pressure increased. Because impact is as dangerous as suspension. The load touched down. Not dropped. Not slammed. Placed. The cable slackened. Gravity reclaimed what it had been borrowing. 14,300 kilograms returned to the earth. Only then did the tension leave the air. The crane stood still again. Unchanged. Silent. The lift was complete. This time. But heavy lifts do not end when the weight touches ground. They end when everyone realizes how close it was. Because cranes remember stress, cables remember strain, steel remembers limits, and every successful lift rewrites the margin for the next one. 14,300 kilograms moved once today, and every move could have been the last.